DJ all morning long. Good pick there, man.
I can see him in the back with the, like the headphones and the.
Just be happy. Just be happy that I'm not singing.
Well,
is it good?
We are.
No, just be happy I'm not.
Well, thank goodness you're not.
Lisa Booth, we're all in for Brian, Steve, and Ainsley, who have a well-deserved vacation this week. Well, we are glad that you're here. Having a lot of fun.
You're stuck with us. Sorry.
You are stuck with us all morning
And
long.
it's so cold outside, you'll be stuck inside for a while.
You're right. So Brian usually says get dressed. I say don't get dressed. Stay in bed under the covers and enjoy the program.
Pajamas,
We'll
enjoy
all the
it.
news we can to you this morning. So, we've been covered for a long time on this program. Bob Mueller. Of course, if you turn it to any other channel, it's Russia, Russia, Russia. Bob Mueller's going to save the Republic all day long. And some have questioned, well, who's actually looking into the investigators and the investigations that have gone on for multiple years, frankly. And there was an investigation that went into Hillary Clinton's server during the election, which a lot of people felt like was not anywhere near as thorough as it could have been. Well, a headline in USA Today caught our eye this morning, and it is this. It says, the quiet probe into Clinton email investigation could be, there it is right there, the quiet probe into Clinton email investigation could be a landmine for Robert Mueller. Turns out the Inspector General, since mid-January, and we've known about this, but it's been behind the scenes, and really there's been no leaks, there's been no big conversation about it. His name is Michael Horowitz. He's been investigating whether or not the DOJ and the FBI did a thorough and fair investigation of Hillary Clinton's email and how it was treated. They've interviewed Loretta Lynch, James Comey, and what USA Today is insinuating is that there's some stuff that they've found that shows that there was a lot of bias inside that investigation.
Well, and this is how we found out about the text messages between FBI agent Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and the insurance policy. That's where that information came from. And Michael Horowitz has not been afraid to take on these government bureaucracies. He's the one that called out the ATF and recommended, I think, 15 different individuals there, recommended some action for them with Fast and Furious and that botched operation back in 2012. And again, he's the one with the DEA that uncovered and went after the DEA regarding the Columbia scandal with the DEA agents and prostitutes there that were paid for by drug cartels. So he's not been afraid to go after some of these government bureaucracies.
Well, and as Pete pointed out, Horowitz has been a guy who is pretty straight-laced, by the book, doesn't leak, doesn't talk. He's behind the scenes, not interested in seeing his name really, except when he testifies there in that picture before Congress. Ron DeSantis, congressman from Florida, saying what he thought the IG will find.
Everything I know, I don't see how you could come to any conclusion other than that there was preferential treatment. I mean, they wrote a letter exonerating her 2 months before they even interviewed her. If you look at how they conducted her interview, it was a softball interview. You had other witnesses in the room. You remember when they bleach bit all the emails. There was never any follow-up for obstruction of justice. You look at somebody like Cheryl Mills, who said, oh, I have no idea she had her own server. And then you look at the emails where she's asking about Hillary's server. Did they pursue her for false statements? Of course not. So this was treated differently than other cases. I think the IG is going to substantiate that.
Speaking of being treated differently, it will be very interesting in the weeks to come how the so-called mainstream media, the left-wing media, treats this story. They've been all over Bob Mueller, wall to wall. He's going to expose collusion to the Trump administration. What if the Inspector General, doing his job quietly, the name Michael Horowitz, will that become a household name? If he reveals that a presidential candidate had a private server at her house, tried to bleach bit and delete emails, it was extremely reckless, is what they said. In actuality, it was grossly negligent, and it was all a cover-up to allow her to run for the White House. Because remember, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be president of the United States, not the loser. And if that had happened, we'd have heard none of this. So it'll be very, very interesting. I love it when an IG at the VA, we've had problems with IGs not actually doing their job. When the IG does their job, you find stuff. It's
incredibly powerful.
And this is a really interesting article, so I recommend people reading it. And two, for the media who, clearly favors Hillary Clinton, has demonstrated that during the general election. They've been critical of James Comey previously in the way that he handled the Hillary Clinton investigation. So everyone on both political sides, as well as the mainstream media, should all be looking at this Inspector General probe and should be welcoming it, because the entire job there is to make sure that there's not bias, that these investigations were handled appropriately. So everybody should be welcoming this. and should be looking to that probe to see what recommendations are made.
Of course, you want to turn the page and get to a place where politics has nothing to do with why we investigate. Now, another campaign promise that this president has made was crushing ISIS. Take a listen to what the president said on the campaign trail.
We will find you, we will destroy you, and we will win.
I would bomb the out of them.
We're going to knock out ISIS so violently and so fast.
You know, Pete, I want to ask you about this because you have served this country, and we all appreciate your service. So we've seen, 98% of the territory lost. I think it's something like 50% in the last 11 months alone under President Trump. And he's really been commended for allowing the commanders on the ground to give them more latitude in the decisions they're making, to put that power back with their commanders on the ground. So I want to go to you on this. And how impactful has that been in allowing our military men and women to just do their job?
Extremely impactful. Let's say you're a captain on the ground leading a special operations group. Under President Obama, you might have to pick up the phone and ask some 25-year-old at the National Security Council permission to call in an airstrike on the enemy, right? That's not how you fight and win wars. Under President Trump, he said, you know what, Captain, you know what, Major, you know what, Colonel, you know what, General, you get to make the call on the ground because you're the professional, you understand the enemy, and your job is to defeat them. You cannot underestimate what untying these guys' hands does. He just empowered our military to do what they know how to do.
Well, not only empowered them to do it, but also backed them up once they did it. When there was the mother of all bombs dropped in Afghanistan, you didn't hear the president or part of his national security staff go, oh, well, we need to look at this, we need to investigate the decision making. Came out full-throated support. And when it is your point, when the captain on the ground knows he has the full support of the White House, these are the numbers that come out of that. 30,000 airstrikes in total to crush ISIS. That is a lot of firepower raining down. 70,000 jihadists killed. And the numbers also speak for themselves in terms of the number of ISIS soldiers remaining in Iraq and Syria. Today, less than 1,000. Back in 2015, there were 45,000. So different now that General Milley of the Army, when he went to go do his Christmas greetings to the troops, he did it from Mosul, Iraq, which at the time, a year ago, Christmas, was under ISIS control.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if we had, again, I don't want to go too far forward, President Hillary Clinton would litigate this very, very differently. And instead, you've got the caliphate defeated. Now, I think they understand, hey, what happens next is incredibly important. Yeah. But you don't get the next chapter until you deal with the caliphate first.
Well, and you deal with Afghanistan.
Right. I mean,
look at that ISIS-controlled territory. Leland, we've all stared at these maps for a couple of years where there's a huge swath of ISIS control. Tiny portion there now. I'm sure they'll zero in on it as well.
And look, by no means is there a fight against radical Islamic extremism over. If it's not ISIS, it's the Taliban, it's Al-Qaeda. We continue to see terrorist groups pop up and spread. So by no means, is this fight over. But it is significant, and the Trump administration should get credit for their work on the ground. And most importantly, our military men and women should get credit for the work that they've done in serving our country and taking the fight to ISIS.
Yeah, God bless these guys. You guys are doing it.